be going over the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram.
Lower banishing ritual of the pentagram is very important. It brings in the 4 elements through the tetrad, essentially, is what we're setting up. And the way we do it, it incorporates the 4 seraphim princes.
Okay.
For bringing in the elemental energy through those particular angels at their highest level, because the seraphim is the highest of the angelic hierarchy. A lot of systems use them at the archangel level, which means they call them in from different directions. However, I don't agree with that, mainly because it dilutes their potency. Mm-hmm. And why would you want to do that if you're calling them in for protection?
Right.
I know a lot of books out there do it. The reason that they do it, though, is a lot of the books, when you get either half to 3/4 way through, they go dark. And when that happens, they want the graceful energy diluted so that the dark energy that you've called in also can overtake it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's a unfortunate occurrence, but it happens in 90% of the books that I've come across that have to deal with any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the dark has incorporated itself into a lot of the books that are out there.
Okay. So a lot of magical text then, yes.
Yes, any books that you find on magic, most of them will go dark at some point. Most of them start out by saying there is no, if they don't do it, then they say that there is no dark or light, and then they go, well, yeah, there is, and there's a dark, and then there's what they call this gray area. They call it gray magic, and that's where they tend to pull people in.
Okay.
And unfortunately, when you're doing protection, you don't want to wipe out all of the energy that you're pulling in. It's ridiculous to think that you would do that. And that's what a lot of the texts want you to do. They want you to pull in certain energy that's graceful to blast out all the negative energy, and then they want you to call in negative entities to blast out the good energy so that you're left with nothing.
That makes no sense. Yeah.
I don't agree with it, never have. I understand part of the philosophy behind it, which is you want to start with a completely clean, fresh slate. However, why would you want to get rid of all the good stuff if that's what you're trying to accomplish? I mean, if that's your goal, why would you set yourself up to get rid of it?
Right.
Along with the bad that you're trying to get rid of. It doesn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference is that when you're using graceful entities, you've become a tool for their energy, and you're able to focus it. However, you're being granted access to it.
Okay.
Where when they wipe everything out, their goal is to then be able to command. And they take the whole, when Christ was killed and reborn, he was brought up, man was brought up above all other things in the universe. So that put him above angels. And if that is the case, the theory is you can command them to do what you want. Why would you need to command them to do what you want? If you know that they are on the graceful side. Mm-hmm. So the command isn't egocentric, but it's also a channel into the dark areas. A lot of the magical text is also about utilizing angels to command demons to do things for you. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that aspect of it either.
Yeah, kind of the route of Solomonic magic and the Golden Dawn, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of those traditions do that. Mm-hmm. The Masons, a lot of the Masonic principles are about that too, in their templates. But if you're doing something and it's not working out, chances are you're in the wrong.
Right.
And they're not allowing the energy to. Mm-hmm. Why would you ever want a system where you can override that and then end up doing something negative just because your ego says this is the right way to do it? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when doing that. Not to mention that at that point, it's not you. you are commanding other things to go out and do things for you. And you're not actually facilitating anything.
Yeah.
So why would you want to do that in the first place?
No,
there's things I do. They're just
it's extremely egotistical.
It's egotistical, and to me, it's backward.
Right.
It's very backward. But it also tends to not allow light practitioners into the magical side of things or the manifestation side of things, and it keeps them out.
Mm-hmm.
Or it draws them into going dark.
Right.
And by the time you know how far you've gone, it's usually you're so far into it, you don't know how to get out of it. And that can be even worse. And the satanic practitioners do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that even with the satanic practitioners, even with the ones that aren't satanic, when you've diluted the energy, you are letting the dark things in and you're giving them more potency than the light things. At some point, they take over. Mm-hmm. And at that point, for a lot of people, it is too late. I mean, it's never really too late, but they feel that it is. Right. And they feel stuck. And they don't go and get help. And when they think that they are trying to get help, they think that they're calling on these Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, even Christ. The problem is that the first thing that happens when the negative entities come in is they hijack your positive connections and destroy them. So you need to get to a point where you never even work with them in the first place.
Right, yeah.
Okay, because then you're calling in Michael, but you're not talking to Michael. You're talking to something that says, yeah, I'm Michael. And that whole thing, you have to tell me your name, doesn't work. It's been proven over and over and over again that it does not actually work. Mm-hmm. It's not practical. You see it on the TV shows. You see it on the paranormal investigation shows. They're out there. They have priests that come in. I command you to tell me your name, and no name comes up. So obviously, it doesn't work. For some people, it worked. Moses did it with Lilith. Mm-hmm. Okay. However, Moses was he had his own particular things going on. He had his own connections, his own power. Right. So it wasn't just him commanding it. He had the graceful angelic energy behind him. And massive amounts of potency that goes along with it. Yeah. Yeah. So
because he had the highest levels on his side.
Well, he had his staff.
Right.
Which was like a what we call it, like a power, not a converter, but it was they act like store energy.
A capacitor.
Yeah, like a capacitor that just stores energy and holds energy in. He focused through that. Massive amounts of energy he had going on. So it wasn't just him commanding, it was also the angelic energy that he was being allowed to focus to be able to do things of that nature.
Right.
So again, that's why we call them at the seraphim level. And you don't want to call them in at the archangel level because it is the second to lowest of the rung of the hierarchies. Now, so the first thing that you do with any of protection, because the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram is the first level.
Right.
It begins with a Kabbalistic cross, which we've covered. And the Kabbalistic cross, again, is just saying that the energy is going to cover you 6 directions.
Right. For full 360 degree coverage.
Because what you're calling in is 2-dimensional energy, and you need it to protect you top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. Because it's not a sphere, so you need to have that pulled in. Now, when you do that, okay, that's the base that sets you up. Then you pull in the elemental energies through angelic energy. That sets up your base. After you learn the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram, you go into the banishing ritual of the hexagram, which takes the 4 elements, turns them into 3 points, and gives you the Trinity. And then you call in energy from the Trinity, and that creates a true pentagram, as we talked about before.
Right.
Because you've got your 4 points, and let's say you're looking at a square in front of you. The 2 bottom parts of the square become the 2 bottom parts of the triangle. The tip of the triangle breaks through the top of the square because everything has to touch God or unity.
Mhm.
So there's a circle that goes around the four corners, and at the top you've got space in between. That's where it breaks through and comes in, and you get this weird little diagram. But if you erase the lines and redraw the lines, it actually forms a pentagram with a circle around it. When you're first doing the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram, you're just seeing pentagrams with no circles around. After you've done the entire thing, the circle appears. That's true protection at that point. But you've got the Trinity and you've got the Tetrad working together in harmony. Okay. That's the importance of the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram. But we need to cover what is a pentagram. What's the big deal about a pentagram?
Right.
Well, the pentagram itself has 5 points. We know this. Okay. The top tip that breaks through the square is considered aether. Okay. And aether is something that was first postulated by, I believe, Pythagoras. It says it's not an element. It is not an element.
Right.
Because elements transform one into the other through cycles. And aether transfuses through all things.
Right.
There's no transformation. Okay. However, because it does that, it's hard to prove it exists. Mainly because when we measure energy against energy, it's about moving things out of its way. That's how our mechanics work. Oh, there's something here because it affected these molecules. So we know when you transfuse, there's a problem because it doesn't move anything out of the way.
Okay.
It's already there. It's already been. Okay. And that's what aether does.
Yeah, it doesn't interact.
Yeah. Now, scientifically, we do have something that correlates with that, and that would be dark matter. And we know dark matter exists mainly because of how nature and the cosmos is affected. Not because it moves things out of the way, but because things aren't exactly where they should be if it didn't exist.
Right.
Okay? But they still have not created any kind of an instrument that can prove its existence. But that is the top point. Okay. And what does aether do? So that's the vehicle that the all, essentially, God, whatever you want to call it, okay, uses to transfuse to everything in our known universe. 1, 2, and 3-dimensional reality. All things. It's what is all things and what isn't all things at the same time. But it's the vehicle used okay, to connect everything to the all. Okay. So essentially, it animates everything because it's celestials. It's the intelligences. It's God in its truest form. So that's the top point. You look at the top point, you go, okay, that's animation. Then the line that gets drawn from the top down diagonally to the side, the right side, is fire.
Right.
What is fire? Fire is penetration. Then you follow that point diagonally up to the left, not all the way up to the point, but up to the side of the pentagram, the next point. That is air. And what is air? Concentration.
Okay.
Then you follow that line across as if it was like a shoulder to the next shoulder. Okay? That's water. That's saturation. Then it comes down, again, diagonally to the left. The point that it creates on the bottom, directly across from fire, is earth, which is consolidation.
Right.
And then it connects right back up to animation. Okay? So when you're doing your lower banishing ritual of the pentagram, and you're drawing them in a specific way, which is you start at bottom left. So you start at earth, right? And you move up to animation, charges the energy with celestial energy. Okay? Then you go to penetration, then you go to concentration, then you go to saturation, then you go to consolidation. So the last point consolidates all of that energy together, all 4 elements and your celestials that you brought in. Okay, that you're bringing in.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's why it's used for protection. Because you take it in and you consolidate the whole thing. You blast everything out and consolidate it. Then you move and do another one for the next direction, and the next direction, the next direction, and the next direction, until you have all four sides.
Right.
Done. Okay, with the Kabbalistic cross, it actually covers above and below also. So that's for the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram. Okay. That's what it means when you're doing it. You're telling the energy what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're connecting it to all four elements and aether, surrounding it with yourself, ending again with the Kabbalistic cross, and you're done. Okay? That's what it's for. All right. Now, we have another that it's not the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram. You learn that first, because you learn protection first. You protect yourself always first.
Right.
Okay? After we're done protecting, we can empower. So the next one is the lower empowerment ritual of the pentagram.
Mm-hmm.
And it follows the exact same template, except you don't start at the lower left when you draw them.
Right. Yeah.
You start up at the tip, animation, and the first thing you do is you go down to penetration.
Right.
Then you go up to concentration, saturation, consolidation. Animation is the last part. The last part you bring in is the celestials, which is what you're empowering yourself with. That's the difference. With the protection, you've already locked all the negative out. Now you're pulling the good in.
Okay.
Or the graceful in.
Right.
Okay. And empowering the energy that you just did. The same thing goes when you do the trinities and you do the hexagrams, which is a completely different thing, but you draw them differently.
Mm-hmm.
But you follow the same template around.
Okay.
Now, that's your basic protection. When you learn those two, what ends up happening is now you want three-dimensional. So you have to create pyramids. Okay? So you have to break the elements into cardinal, fixed, and mutable.
Right.
Or personal, creative, and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Each side of a pentagram, each line is associated with one of those. Okay. And then one of those triangle sides is a particular element. So if it's fire, one side will be cardinal fire, which is Aries. One side will be fixed energy, fire energy, which is Leo.
Mm-hmm.
One side is going to be mutable fire energy, which is Sagittarius.
Okay.
When you flip it, the same line that was cardinal fire is going to be cardinal of the next element. Okay? So if we're following it in a clockwise direction, let's say, then what we've got is we're going to go to water. So that cardinal side isn't just going to be Aries anymore. It's now going to be Cancer. The next side becomes Scorpio. The bottom side, because it's mutable, is going to become Pisces. The whole thing goes around. That's how they're connected together. The pyramid's created and they don't fly apart. Because each side, each line represents two elements.
Right.
Okay. And then it has a base at the bottom. The only one that's not like that is when we do the tetrahedron.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
The tetrahedron is different because there's no base at the bottom. Tetrahedrons are four-sided. They're not five. So there's no base. It's not a pyramid. But it does follow the same exact pattern.
Right.
It just connects in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And when you're doing that, you take a step out, as far as the pentagrams are concerned, of the template when you make them. Okay. And the tetrahedron is again when we start getting into platonic solids.
Right.
And how they work, how they do it. The only other weird one of the platonic solids is the icosahedron, because it's 20 trinities or triads.
Okay.
So those are complete hexagram built. And there's no pentagram involved. And they're deeply connected with water.
Okay.
So that is the importance. Now, I just explained what the sides mean. How do you do them? It takes 3 pentagrams to create one side of a pyramid. So you have to do 3 two-dimensional pentagrams to create one side of 3-dimensional pyramid. Okay?
Okay.
All right. That's the importance of it. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's where this is going with protection. Because when you're in the pyramid, you are in the middle of the pyramid. Okay? Everything is connecting to you. And instead of having a circle around you that can be broken, you have a sphere around you. And as you move, the sphere moves with you.
Right.
It never breaks. Only has to be done once a day. And you do them for empowerment and protection. You do them once a day. And they're with you the entire day.
Right.
All right. But you have to use the lower banishing ritual, the pentagrams, banishing ritual, the hexagrams in order to create them.
Right.
In the first place. Their foundations. And then their signs. Okay. So there's a lot of angelic energy that goes into the pyramids. Much more than going to the lower banishing rituals. When you get, and they're called the superior banishing and empowerment rituals. Okay. So each of those three sides has to have a celestial connected to them.
Right.
Okay. So you're talking 12.
Okay.
Preparing. Okay. And then you have to start looking at what celestials do you want and all of that good stuff. But you start again by working the two dimensions so that you can protect your area, empower yourself, and then start looking at the angels. Otherwise, you're going to get negative stuff coming and trying to influence you and positive stuff. Yeah. It gets frustrating. It gets really scary. But that's why you always start with protection. Always. Everything that I ever talk about, teach people. Protection comes first. Then you move into some other things. But you always protect yourself.
Okay.
You start with protection, you end with protection, and that's it. Always. Okay. But that's the lower banishing ritual of the pentagram. That's what it is for. That's how it works.
Interesting.
And those are how pentagrams work.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And that's exactly what you're doing it, why you're drawing them in specific ways, and why each point represents a particular element. Those elemental points do not change ever. They always represent the same elements.
Right.
And sides. Okay. Hopefully that was simplified enough for you and everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's about all for this one.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us, and hopefully you learned something new and interesting. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.